What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Football Forecast, episode number 11. It is the first day of October on a Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So welcome to episode 11. A lot of things happen in the NFL and in college this week, and we have a lot of stuff going on next week as well to talk about today. I guess we can go ahead and hop right into it. Some of the biggest news really doesn't really come from sort of stories. I think a lot of the big news comes from the games that we saw, the outcomes of the games and the surprises that we saw. But there is a big story that needs to break free first. So if you keep up with football, you know about the Vontaze Burfict situation. So this guy's a guy that has, gotten in situations before, linebacker that was for the Bengals, now for the Raiders. He had some situations before where he would hit players, pretty hard, get a lot of unnecessary roughness calls. That's a no-no in the NFL. You can't be doing that, especially with the new rules that the NFL has applied to their game. So it is kind of a bad situation for Vontaze Burfict when he makes all these bad hits and like that. It puts a coach in a bad situation, puts the players that he's hitting in a bad situation, puts himself in a bad situation. And finally cut up to him this week because he has been suspended for the 2019 season because of his helmet-to-helmet contact with Colts tight end Jack Doyle on Sunday. So he will not be paid during the suspension. The league looked at his multiple pass counts of unnecessary roughness and decided to give the longest suspension ever for an on-field incident. So he's appealing the decision. He's saying that it's too excessive. This is his 14th suspension. So it makes you wonder if he's really worth the Raiders' time and money. He's only signed to a 1-year, $2 million contract with $600,000 in guaranteed money. So if you're looking at the Raiders, you really have to look at, should they even be wanting to keep this guy anymore? What do you think is going to happen in Vontaze?
I don't know. I guess he's going to appeal the decision, which will probably be upheld. This guy is just he's just a thug. He's always in trouble, always getting suspended or missing games for one reason or another. Even when he was in college at Arizona State, he had issues there as well, getting in trouble for violating rules and missing games for being suspended. So it's just an ongoing thing. And after this, I wouldn't think that the Raiders would re-sign him, and I'd be surprised if anybody took a chance on him. At some point, as a player, you can only screw up so many times before you kind of run out of lives, This is kind of the thing that's going to be happening to AB right now, and it looks like Vontaze Burfict is going to be following suit. Just get to a point where people are just going to figure that signing you is not worth their time because, either you can't do what you need to do and follow the rules and stay on the field and be a productive player, or you bring too much negativity and bad publicity to the team, or it's not worth the team's time to sign you and have you on the roster. It just it doesn't serve any real purpose if you're not going to be there and be on the field and be a productive player.
It does put the Raiders in a bad decision because, something else, like before this, he was named as a team captain for the Raiders. John Gruden actually really likes this guy. So it's kind of weird to see this kind of unfold the way it did. But the NFL has zero tolerance for these kind of hits. When you play in the league and they're giving you that much money, this is a thing that you have to take into account. You have to know you can't hit somebody like that. And this was an open hit. This isn't like a controversial hit. This is a hit that he could have decided not to make. He had time to not make it. He argues that it's a football play, and it is until you get into the NFL. It's not their play, and you're in the NFL, and they're paying you that money. You have to play by their rules, unfortunately, but it is for safety. It is, to keep players safe and things like that. And Jack Doyle could have been seriously injured. Pretty sure he's good, but it could have been way, way worse. So, hopefully it's not the end of Vontaze's career, but at the same time, he's really got to work on adjusting to these hits. He's got to be like Clay Matthews. It took Clay Matthews like 4 games to adjust to these hits, and now he's doing it all the time on the Rams. So yeah, that's pretty much that for that. Just he's got to do a better job at making those hits like a new NFL adaptive linebacker. So. Yeah, so that's that in that story and Vontae's perfect story. So that's pretty much it for like the stories that have gone on in the NFL. There's not many like big stories or anything like that. We will go on and look at the scores though. The games from this week, some crazy stuff happened. So the biggest thing, especially around here to where we're local to, is the Buccaneers dropped 55 points on the Los Angeles Rams, the best offense in the league last year. It was 55-40 Buccaneers. Jameis Winston went 28 out of 41 for 385 yards, 9.4 average yards a play, 4 touchdowns, and just 1 pick. Jared Goff went 45 out of 68 with 2 touchdowns and 3 picks. So that's a little odd to see Jameis Winston as the better quarterback out of those two in that kind of matchup. You would think, on paper, the Rams have the best secondary in the league with guys like Aqib Talib. You got Eric Weddle back there. You have almost, the top premier secondary. So it's kind of crazy to see Jameis Winston went off like he did, and they were able to get the ground game going a little bit. Ronald Jones the second was 19 carries for 70 yards. And they were just completely shutting down the Rams. In the interior blocking for the Bucks was insane, like something I've never seen before. They did not let Clay Matthews or Aaron Donald get in there and disrupt Jameis Winston at all. He was able to ball out. So that's pretty crazy. I mean, I know you enjoyed it because of your fantasy team, with all the Buccaneers players. But yeah, crazy game. So I mean, we said in the past couple weeks that if the Bucks want to do good again, we know Bruce Arians is the guy to do it. If they want to do good on offense again, they want to do great things on offense, they're gonna have to get O.J. Howard involved again. It looks to me like they did that. 3 receptions for 33 yards. 11 average. That's pretty well, especially for a tight end when you average in Cameron Brate as well, and getting Chris Godwin those 12 receptions for 2 touchdowns. That's pretty good. The Bucks are looking pretty hot right now. I don't know. I mean, they put 55 on the Rams. That's pretty solid. Do you think Jameis Winston can continue this? Do you think this is like a fluke game, or you think he might be able to actually be an improved quarterback?
Jameis has always had that in him, but he has always has been kind of up and down. He'll have a game like this, and then come back the next week. He'll throw for about 200 yards and throw 2 or 3 picks.
Exactly.
So if he can continue this level of performance, I mean, that's going to be great for the Bucks, because the Bucks defense, especially in their secondary, is just not very good. I mean, obviously, when you give up 517 yards passing, that's not good. Even if you do have 3 picks, that's a lot of yardage. But yeah, I mean, basically the Bucks' fortunes this year are going to be going as Jameis Winston goes. If he can continue to play well and play at a high level, this team has a chance to do something, maybe even make the playoffs. But their offense is going to carry them. It's not going to be the defense. The Buccaneers are not going to win any defensive struggles. They're going to win. They're going to have to score points to do it, and they've got good enough offensive players to do it. Ronald Jones, he appears to be coming on as a running back. Also a good option out of the backfield to throw to. We know the Bucks have good receivers. O.J. Howard probably could be utilized a little bit better at tight end, but he's certainly a weapon there. He's a guy with his size and speed and athleticism is hard to guard. That's a tough matchup. A lot of times would be against either a linebacker or a safety. So, but yeah, I mean, they're obviously not going to score this many points every game, but if they could consistently play good offense and maybe score in the 30s every game, they got a chance to win, against anybody they play.
I think so. And when you add in on defense, guys like Devin White, who they drafted, who is going to significantly improve as the season goes along. But not only that, but Shaquille Barrett. This guy is right now the number 1 defensive player in the league. I believe he has 9 sacks in total right now. That is absolutely insane to be only week 4. So they got some good pieces on defense, but yeah, like you said, they're gonna have to do some more of this. They're gonna have to outscore people and win some games, and they got the team to do it. They got Mike Evans, who one of the best receivers that you can get, and OJ Howard. So yeah, like you said, they're gonna have to outscore, and I believe they can do it if Jameis can stay on his A game. Well, we've seen this before. He's come out and he's done amazing before. Then he's come out the next week and like you said, threw 200 yards, 3 picks, or something like that. So it all relies on Jameis. He's the man. See if Bruce Arians can keep him out there and keep him comfortable in that pocket. And yeah, see if we can get that interior pressure just kind of dissolve like they did against the Rams. See if they can do that on that O-line. So yeah, good things from the Bucs this week. If you watch the Bucs, that was a great game. Another one I wanted to talk about too, which was a very surprising game, was the Patriots and the Bills. The Bills actually played very well in this game, and I think the Bills might have the best secondary in the league, or at least one of the better ones. So on paper, it's not like they have a great secondary. We got guys like Tre'Davious White, you got Micah Hyde back there. You got guys that are
Levi Wallace.
Yeah, you got Levi Wallace. You got guys back there that are decent. Nobody above average, but it takes some skill to stop the Patriots from scoring this much. So Tom Brady was 18 out of 39. He only had 150 yards, and he had 1 pick as well. And so obviously the Patriots won the game 16-10. So obviously if Josh Allen was a little bit more on his mark, if they could get that game going a little bit more, the Bills could have easily capitalized on that and won. But the Patriots do have one of the best defenses regardless every single year. So we automatically kind of know you're gonna have a hard time outscoring the Patriots, but the Bills can take your scores away, especially if you take deep shots and things like that, because it seemed like Tom Brady was really resulting into some deep shots that day. He missed. He only had a 45.9 RTG, so I don't know. It's kind of weird seeing the Bills do that, especially a team that looks very unsuccessful in the past couple of years. And like we said, we saw Josh Allen go down for concussion protocol. Matt Barkley came in, went 9 out of 16 for 127 yards. He did have a pick as well. So like I said, if they could have capitalized on that, they probably could have won the game. But 16-10 when you're playing the Patriots, that's a very low scoring game. That's something to take away, though. Something to be very proud of.
Yeah, I mean, if the Bills can just play a little bit better and just be solid on offense and cut out all the turnovers, they'll be tough to beat if that defense continue to play like it is. I mean, you look at the Patriots did on Sunday. I mean, they scored 13 points pretty quick in the first quarter. They only scored another field goal the rest of the game. The defense basically locked them down after that. I can't remember a game in recent memory where Tom Brady was held to that few yards passing. He only averaged 3.8 yards per pass attempt, and his QBR was 10.3, which is terrible. So I'll never remember him having that poor numbers. And you look at the Bills, and the Bills do have a pretty good secondary, but really it's their front seven that's really good and causing them to do really well. I mean, you look at their front seven. I mean, you got guys like Star Lotulelei, real good defensive lineman. Tre'Davious White from LSU, good linebacker. So you got some really good players there.
Not to mention, you also have the depth of Ed Oliver when they drafted
Ed
this
Oliver,
year.
of course, you got him as well. So yeah, I mean, you got some really good.
You have a solid defense there.
Yeah,
when you look at it, which is I don't think anybody really looked at the Bills this year and saw any silver lining and could say the Bills have a solid defense. But this is something you have to kind of look at. Obviously, it's no Bears superstar defense, but it's kind of like an Eagles defense that we saw when they played the Patriots. It's kind of like a solid defense, no superstars here and there, just kind of an all around solid defense that everybody's doing their job, getting their assignments. So if they can keep that up, if they can keep the Patriots like that, I wonder what they can do against guys like the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Browns, even the Falcons. Permitted the Falcons actually get an offense going. So yeah, that's pretty different. That's pretty cool that you see the Bills being very successful in that unit of the game. So
yeah, and you look at the Bills. I mean, they're sitting at 3-1 right now. They just had a close loss with a not very good offensive performance against one of the best teams in the league, the team that had been the most dominant up to this point. So they played them pretty tough. And if you look at what they've done so far, you look at their schedule the rest of the way, things set up for them pretty well. You got two other teams in the division who are both winless right now. They haven't played the Dolphins yet, so you got two games coming against the Dolphins this year. They'll get to play the Jets again at some point, and I'm not sure who else is on their schedule, but they don't have the toughest schedule out there for sure. So I mean, if they can get a little bit better on offense, continue to play well on defense, they've got a chance to win a lot of games.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they could sneak in and beat, obviously beat the Dolphins. They have a good chance against the Eagles with that secondary, that defense. The Redskins are, tanking just as bad as the Dolphins, it seems, right now. The Browns might be a hard game. You have Miami again, Broncos, Dallas, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, New England, New York. So that's what you're looking at for the Bills. I think they can get it done. I think if you look at it, they can probably get it done and probably sneak in there to the playoffs somehow. But there are a lot of good teams in the AFC, so you do have to look and see all the teams and see, what's the chances, the Bills actually going to make it in and make something of their season. They're just going to have to quit the turnovers. If they can do that, they can make it in. But right now, with all those turnovers, I don't really see them, getting in past the Bills and past the Jets and the Ravens, the Browns, the Patriots, those kind of guys. I don't really see, that happening. But turnovers, like you said, most important part of the Bills' offense right now. They have to stop that. And also, I'm not sure what the status is on Josh Allen after his concussion protocol, but I guess we'll have to wait and see an update on that. I'm not sure if they haven't posted any updates on that. So, we'll have to wait and see on that. But yeah, prayers up to Josh Allen, and let's see if he can come back and get the Bills working again, get those turnovers taken away, and yeah. All right, so to some other scores. We do have, Chicago and the Vikings, Chicago and Minnesota. So the Bears were able to kind of put a stop to the Vikings' killer offense with Dalvin Cook, and they stopped Dalvin Cook 14 carries for 35 yards, which is really good. And the Bears do have the best defense in the National Football League. I think every analyst is pretty much saying the same thing. So obviously easy stop, but Chase Daniel did go 22 out of 30. 195 yards for one touchdown. So that is that's something you have to kind of look at and be like, you have to kind of look at in a situation where the Bears are going to be able to beat almost every high power offense in the NFC. I think really their only challenge is looking like beating the Saints and their kind of wacky type of offense now, where they throw all kinds of screens and run wacky plays with Taysom Hill and things like that. So that's going to be a challenge for them. But I think regardless, like the NFC has a lot of high-scoring teams. I think they're going to have a fun time beating those guys out. They don't really have to play many teams when they make it into the playoffs that are going to stop them, offensively. I would say. I think there's a couple teams that might be able to do it, but the Bears, I still might have them as going into the NFC as maybe almost my Super Bowl favorites. I still have the Cowboys in there. I think the Cowboys could stop them offensively. But yeah, we still have to see. We still have to wait and see. But stopping the Vikings with Dalvin Cook, that's been rushing all over the place, stopping them to only one touchdown, and I guess that was Dalvin Cook that scored that touchdown because it says Chase Daniel had, or it said so basically just having that that touchdown there, just one for the Vikings, it kind of just shows you like, wow, the Bears are no joke on the offense or on the defense still.
Yeah, I mean, actually, both these teams are really good on defense, especially the Bears. And Minnesota has a pretty decent offense. So for the Bears to shut them out, that was fairly impressive. As far as the Bears, offensively, they're going to have to get a little bit better. I know Mitchell Trubisky has been taking a little bit of heat. He's not seemed to really come on at the end of last season. Was playing well. Is not playing as well so far this year. Was he injured in that game, or did he just get replaced? I don't remember.
I believe he was taken out for injury.
Okay.
Because he is 2 for 3.
Okay.
But I would have to
All
look
right.
at that and see exactly.
Yeah, but the thing is, too, you look at this division. Of course, the Bears and Vikings are both in the same division, the NFC North. That's going to be a tough division. Um, and you look at you look at it. I mean, that's really a defensive division.
And
I
we
mean,
we talked about it last week with the
Yeah.
Packers and their new defense
you
and
got
the
the
Bears.
Packers,
I
the
mean,
Bears, and the Vikings, and then you got the Lions are off to a decent start. They're 2-1-1 so far. So I mean, yeah, every team in that division has a winning record right now, except for the Vikings, which are 2-2, and they've got a good team. I mean, heck, the team that wins that division may not win more than say maybe 10 games because it's going to be tough. These guys are just going to be beating up. They're going to be beating up on each other the whole season. So
it really comes down, like you said, it is a defensive division, and you have to look and see what team has the best offense really out of those guys. Honestly, the Vikings probably have the best, but their defense is just not as good as the Packers and the Bears and the Lions. Just overall are gonna probably end up last in that division just because they're the way they can't get their offense or defense really rolling. But man, that's a tough one. That's a very tough division. All those teams, you're likely to see all of them in the playoffs. You don't know which ones are going to get in there and slip in and try to go to the Super Bowl. So, but yeah, the Bears definitely probably my favorites. I don't know. I still have the Cowboys as my favorites to kind of get in as the leaders of the NFC, but I guess we'll kind of see there. Sunday Night Football, we had Dallas and New Orleans play. It'll be like Cowboys against the Saints, and that game came down to the Saints beating the Cowboys 12-10. Came down to a final drive where I believe Dak had about like 5 seconds or something like that or I think it was like 3 seconds. He had to throw a big Hail Mary, and he threw it in like quadruple coverage to Amari Cooper, and it was picked off, obviously. Yeah, so the Saints, I mean, as good as it looks, the Saints barely scrapped by with 12 points. They barely got by. It was a 2-point win. So I don't know. I wouldn't be celebrating that much if I was a Saints fan, especially when you got Teddy Bridgewater in there. But he did do pretty decent. No big shots really. It was mostly some screens here and there, and you had some handoffs and some little short play actions. 23 out of 30 for 193 yards, 1 pick. So not terrible. Definitely pretty good, but I think it doesn't really come down to him and like Michael Thomas really hitting it off for a bunch of yards. Michael Thomas had 9 receptions for 95 yards. It's not too bad. I think it really just comes down to the way they run their offense, and they ran it pretty low to the ground. With the Cowboys, is kind of anything higher up kind of gets stopped a little bit. They do have a pretty good secondary, guys like Byron Jones. So I think that probably you can chalk that up to why the Saints were able to get it done there. But yeah, I still have the Cowboys as my kind of number one. They have it all. They got Amari Cooper and Ezekiel Elliott on the ground. Zeke really didn't perform on Sunday night. So
no, again, this was a game like a lot like the Bears and Vikings. It's a defensive game, not a lot of offense. And it's not like the offenses played bad. I think it's just that the defenses played so well. But yeah, the Cowboys they're going to have to. They're going to have to do better on offense if they do in fact want to be a team that's going to contend for a spot in the Super Bowl. The Saints, you look at Teddy Bridgewater. Now he's a guy ever since he had that injury, he's never played a lot. So each week he goes out there, he's probably going to get a little bit better and a little bit better. Maybe the deep passing game will come. He has that ability. Maybe not the confidence to chunk it downfield right now. They probably want to get him comfortable in that offense and playing. So there's probably going to be a lot of dinking and dunking and a short to intermediate kind of passing game. That'll probably continue. If you look at the weapons he has, I mean they should be able, if they execute, they should be able to win doing that. And they're good enough defensively where they should be able to do that and win. They're not a team that has to go out and score 30 or 40 points to win ball games. But yeah, like I said, I think both these are good teams, and I think it's just a game where the offenses, didn't necessarily play bad. I think just the defenses were just that good.
I mean, and they were pretty good. If you go down to defensive stats, you have Von Bell for the Saints with 7 solo tackles. Demario Davis with 6 solo tackles. It's pretty good. You got Vander Esk, who was drafted. Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me scroll down a little bit. Yeah, so Leighton Vander Esk with 10 solo tackles, which is also really, really good. And Jalen Smith with 7 solo tackles for the Cowboys. It's looking good for both of these defenses. You had 1 sack for Jalen Smith, 2 tackle for loss. Jalen Smith had 1 big QB hit as well. So these are things you look at and you see in the NFC. Like the Cowboys do have sort of a defense. The Saints do as well. It's just a question. They're gonna have to actually score some points now without Drew Brees for a little bit and see how that goes without all the dinking and tugging in a little bit because teams are going to start to play that stuff underneath. They're going to force Teddy Bridgewater to start playing overhead. So we'll see how that goes for the Saints. But yeah, I think the Cowboys were definitely pretty dominant in that game. Kind of wish they would have came out with the dub because they are my NFC favorites right now. But I think they'll get it done. In the future, I think they really have everything they need to kind of get it done. And Jason Witten too had a good day. If you have him on fantasy, I mean, man had 4 receptions for 50 yards and 12.5 average yards per reception. That's pretty good for a player like as old as him. I mean, that's really good. It's as good as any wide receiver. So yeah. So that's pretty much it for the Cowboys and Saints. Kind of a disappointing game if you think the Cowboys are as good as you want them to be, but they're still pretty good. Other than that, the Browns kind of beat the crap out of the Ravens, 40-25. Not much on that. Odell didn't do much in that game. Jarvis did. Lamar Jackson just didn't really have that much of a game. He was 24 out of 34, 247 yards. Couldn't get the ground game going at all, really. 12 carries for 71 yards.
Baker Mayfield finally had a decent game throwing the ball.
Baker Mayfield was a lot more comfortable, yeah.
Nick Chubb had a good game. Of course, half his yards came on 1 run, but still he had a solid game.
They got him rolling, definitely. Nick Chubb is going to be a future.
And OBJ had been kind of the focal point for the Browns passing game the first few games, but in this game, Jarvis Landry was the how do you say it? The more successful receiver, I guess.
Kind of the prime receiver of that game.
Yeah, I guess Odell probably was drew the coverage of the Ravens' best DB, which is Marlon Humphrey, best coverage corner. So I guess Jarvis Landry was the beneficiary of that, and was able to get some more targets and pick up some more catches and yards. So.
And, Marlon Humphrey was a little bit aggressive with Odell the whole game. He was locking him down. There's no joke about that. He was locking Odell down. So, yeah, bad week if you had him on fantasy. That is for sure. So, yeah, all right, let's go and switch gears a little bit because we kind of covered all the scores from the NFL that were really, really important. Add to that, Dolphins still suck. Jaguars beat the Broncos by 2. Seahawks were able to beat the Cardinals, and Kyler Murray did not look like
Chiefs
a good
came
first-round pick.
late, beat the Lions.
Of course, yeah, Patrick Mahomes got it done. Danny Dimes dropped 21 on the Redskins, 21-point win with 24-3 as the final score. Daniel Jones was 23 out of 31 for 225 yards. So, Danny Dimes doing pretty good.
Yeah, and word is that the Redskins, if they don't turn around real quick like next week, they could be without their head coach.
Yeah, so that's unfortunate for a lot of teams, and the same thing goes for the Falcons as well. Falcons have been losing with all the talent they have. Dan Quinn is on the hot seat as well, so Jay Gruden can join him there. All right, so I guess that's pretty much it for the NFL. Just because there's not really a lot of news to cover, not really any big stories, just some stats for you, and I think we got through a lot of the the important ones. So we could move on to something a little bit more entertaining this week. We'll go into college football. So just a recap, we talked about a lot of games last week. Biggest thing for us, Clemson, no longer the number 1 team in the nation. Alabama has made their spot as a number 1 team in the nation on the AP poll after Clemson barely scraped by an unranked North Carolina team that's 2-3, 21-20. They won by 1 point scored that point in the fourth quarter to get them rolling, get that win. They had one touchdown in the fourth quarter. North Carolina did two. North Carolina had 6 points. That's really what it came down to. They had no touchdowns in the first quarter, Clemson. They scored both of them in the second quarter, but they had that last one in the fourth quarter that got them ahead and eventually won that game. North Carolina did want to go for a they tried to go for a 2-point conversion, right? That was what happened.
I mean, they scored a touchdown with 1:13 to go. Went for two. Bad play call, if you ask me. I think a lot of people would agree, and they didn't make it. So
it was a terrible play call.
And that was basically the ball game because at that point, North Carolina had already used all their timeouts. So they tried an onside kick, had a chance to get it, didn't get it, and that was it because Clemson was just able to run up the clock from that point.
And I mean, when you beat a team like that, when it comes down to a 2-point conversion, when you won that game because it was a bad play call, that you have to look and say, this can't be the number one team in the nation, and rightfully so. They're not, and it makes sense why. Trevor Lawrence is no longer the nation's golden boy quarterback. He was 18 out of 30 for 206 yards. He has 5 interceptions. You look at a guy like Tua, who has 0. Justin Fields has 0. And really, they try to get the ground game going with Travis Etienne. He had 14 carries for 67 yards. Wasn't too bad. He had a touchdown. They couldn't get it going. They were having a hard time getting it going. Meanwhile, North Carolina looked like they were playing a regular team, going 15 on 27, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns for Sam Howell. And then rushing, you have 2 guys here, Michael Carter and Javonte Williams. Carter had 16 carries for 99 yards. Williams had 10 for 49 yards. So North Carolina was playing it like any other team, any other unranked team. They were playing Clemson pretty hard. You look at Clemson and say, are they going to be able to get this offense back together and make it back into the college football playoff and actually win some games? Or you think they're going to slip up here and lose one?
Well, right now, Clemson's biggest opponent is themselves. They're fighting what Alabama's been accused of in the past when they come off a big season or a championship. And particularly when they go through a stretch of schedule where they're playing teams that they should easily beat. They're fighting complacency. And if you look at Clemson's schedule, they don't have anybody out there that looks daunting. Anybody that can really challenge them. And what had happened Saturday was, and it's the same thing Clemson's going to face every week. You got a team at North Carolina who is going to give Clemson its best shot. Every team that plays Clemson is going to give its best shot. Clemson's, up until now, was the number 1 team in the country. They're defending national champions. Everybody's going to get up to play them. And what you have is a North Carolina team who probably play a little bit over its head. And you have a Clemson team that's kind of just going through the motions right now. They're not playing as good as they're capable of. They're certainly not playing anywhere close to the level they were playing with the last half of last season. This is kind of the same thing that happened to Clemson last year. The first 4, 5, 6 games, they were winning, but they were kind of struggling in a couple of games. They weren't playing as well as they could have. And eventually, they kind of turned it on, and they got better as the season went along. And by the end of the season, they were playing really good football. Right now, they're not. And if you look at their schedule, they don't have anybody on their schedule who, if you look at it from a talent standpoint, should be able to seriously challenge them. But is Clemson going to be able to get up and get ready and play these games? Because you still got 7 games on the schedule. They've only got 1 ranked team, and that's not until November 16th when they play Wake Forest. Which I'm sure doesn't really excite anybody.
And that's not even who I'm looking at giving them their best shot again. I'm looking at South Carolina to kind of give them their hardest shot. At the end of the season, they're in late season form. You played North Carolina. South Carolina is unarguably better than North Carolina. So I'm saying that, maybe South Carolina can give them another shot.
The 2 teams that are going to probably give them the stiffest challenge is going to be the next game, which of course are off this week, but the Saturday after on the 12th, they've got to play Florida State at home. Florida State, a team that's starting to play a little bit better. You know, they got talent, they got some athletes. You know, if they could come out and play good, and Clemson doesn't play any better than what they've been playing, that could be a game. And then you look at the last game, like you said, they're playing at South Carolina, big rivalry game. South Carolina played better this past Saturday against a Kentucky team that's, spent most of the game playing their third string quarterback. Not nearly as good as a Kentucky team as what we saw out of them last year. But, that certainly, though, anytime if you have a capable team, you got a rivalry game, anything can happen in those games. And that will be a road game for Clemson. So that one will be interesting to watch. But between the next game and the end of the season, actually, you got to wait for it. I don't really expect Wake Forest to seriously challenge Clemson. I mean, maybe they will, but that's a home game for Clemson. Exactly. And, Wake Forest, I think, more or less is their success is a product of just playing in a weak conference and not playing anybody so far that's been really good. And in between, they've got games at Louisville, Boston College, Wofford, and at North Carolina State. And none of those teams are very good. So.
And just the point is that they're just not playing anybody good. You look at people saying Alabama has a cupcake schedule. Well, Alabama plays LSU, who some people are saying Joe Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks to ever play at LSU ever. I mean, this guy is somebody that's looking really good.
He's going to have to do it for more than 4 games, but he's on his way.
And also, if he didn't stay in the entire game, like, Tua and Jalen and, all these guys Tua's doing, Jalen's actually starting to come out of the games a little bit earlier now, but Tua, you only really see him for a half and maybe halfway through the third quarter now, but, Joe Burrow's kind of staying in for the whole game, really. So, just regardless, though, that's who Alabama plays. They play LSU. They play Auburn. They play these teams that are going to give them a really hard challenge. LSU or Auburn could easily flip the tails and beat Alabama like it's nothing. So Clemson, I mean, to have this kind of schedule, to beat Alabama like they did in the national championship and come out and only score 21 on North Carolina and, have them score 20 against you, it's looking very scary for Clemson. I'd be very, very worried if I could get Trevor Lawrence on a roll again. I don't know if he's just having a sophomore slump or what's going on, but they're going to have to fix their problem.
Who knows? And like I said, sometimes when you got a good team, and sometimes it's the lack of competition. And, and sometimes good teams only play their best when they're playing somebody that's really good, that's going to challenge them. Sometimes teams have that issue. They kind of play up to the level of competition, and that seems to be what Clemson is kind of doing right now. So it's going to be interesting to see if that's going to continue, or at some point they break out of it and they start playing like the team that we saw most of last year. So.
Yeah, and for me, it really comes down to Dabo, what Dabo's been saying, because he says the same kind of stuff. He said a win's a win, and you would never hear that come out of Nick Saban's mouth. You never hear that come out of Coach O's mouth.
No.
Anybody like that.
But you would hear it come out of Gene Stallings' mouth. And, of course, Gene Stallings was Dabo's coach at Alabama. And that would sound exactly like something that Gene Stallings would say. Gene Stallings was never a coach. He was very old school. He believed in running the football, playing defense, and stopping the run. He didn't care about scoring a bunch of points. And he was just as happy winning the game 13-10 as he would be winning a game 35-7.
Yeah, I mean
that's where that comes from. That was just trying to be positive, but he knows deep down that team has a lot of work to do and a lot of stuff that they need to do to get better if they're going to try to get to the point where they got to last season.
I definitely hope so, because I assume that he's just not translating it as well as coaches like Nick Saban can do. And what I see from Dabo is that same thing. Paul Feinbaum said earlier in the season he doesn't know how to act like a winner. But I mean, I don't know. He's kind of doing a thing now where he like you said, they look like they're playing up to the level of the competition that they play, which is nobody. So I don't know. You're gonna have to see if that evolves for them as they go along. I think that Nick Saban, we saw Nick Saban talk about the win over Ole Miss, which was a pretty decisive win, even though Ole Miss was able to put some points on Alabama later in the game. But overall, it was a pretty decisive win, a pretty definite win. I'm trying to pull up the actual box here so I can elaborate on it. Yeah, so it's 59-31. It's a pretty elaborate win. But Nick Saban was kind of pissed after the game about the some of the plays that happened late in the fourth quarter. Ole Miss scored 14 in the fourth quarter, which is more than any other quarter where they scored. So rightfully so. He has a reason to be mad. And that's kind of what I'm saying. I think it translates that way. He beat a team that pretty decisively with one of the best offensive productions ever, a record-setting offensive production for school history, and he comes out and he's mad. And Dabo barely beats a team by 1 point. And he's all happy, smiling, and giggles. I really hope that translates on the field. And you could argue and say that it does, and maybe that's just how he paints it for the media. But when you look at how they've played and who they played and just the way that they've played and they haven't beat anybody definitively, it kind of makes you wonder, is he just not good at translating that to his team? Can he not be like a Coach O or like a Nick Saban or just a great motivator or coach for his team to have them play to the level of national champions? Because this is college football. A win is not a win in college football. That's a loss. You're not the number one team anymore. Trevor Lawrence has thrown 5 interceptions. Tua has thrown none. A win is not a win. There's so many other factors you have to look at. There's Heisman trophies. There's awards. There's the AP poll. There's the college football playoff. In the NFL, yeah, a win's a win. You can have the Patriots come and lose to the Dolphins next week. You don't know. It's just a win in the NFL is definitely a win. But in college football, you have so many factors. And honestly, Dabo can't act like that. I think the result of him acting like this is going to get him another loss somewhere in this season, regardless of if it's a postseason or not.
I think what you hear from him publicly is probably a little bit different than the message he gives to his team.
I would think so.
Privately. He wants to be Mr. Positive and wants to deflect any criticism of the way they're playing and just, and wants to stay focused on the fact that they won the game. But I think he knows that this team is going to have to play a lot better. He also knows that this team is the main thing here is for any college team that has championship aspirations. The main thing is you want to put yourself in a position where you're going to be in the college football playoff. And I think Dabo deep down probably knows, and I think a lot of people who really follow and watch college football know, if Clemson doesn't go undefeated, there is a good chance that they will not be in the college football playoff.
Just because there's so many other good teams.
When you look at the other teams and how the seasons are playing out right now, you look at the SEC. I mean, SEC may possibly get 2 teams in the playoff at the end of the season. And you see all these teams unbeaten in the top 10 right now, but eventually all these teams are going to be playing one another. You look at Auburn, they've got to play Florida this Saturday. And then they still got to play LSU and Georgia and Alabama on their schedule. Alabama still got to play LSU and Auburn later on in the season. Georgia has got to play Florida and Auburn, and I think they play LSU as well. So, I mean, all these teams are going to mostly play one another. So, I mean, it's all going to kind of sort itself out as we go through the season, through the schedule and everything. But
really, every other team plays somebody unlike Clemson. The only team that you can kind of look at Clemson and say they don't really, compare to Clemson, say they don't really play anybody is Oklahoma, really. I mean, they don't really play.
Oklahoma, at this point, has a 2-game season. Mm-hmm. They got to play Texas here in a few weeks. That's the real only team on their schedule that's going to seriously challenge them. If Oklahoma plays well, Texas is the only team that can match Oklahoma and beat them on the field. And even if they do beat Texas in that game, they would probably likely have to play them again in the Big 12 championship game. So they probably have to beat them twice. But yeah,
it's definitely doable for Oklahoma. But it's comparable to Clemson, right? I mean, they really only play two good teams, and Clemson really doesn't even play one great team. So, yeah,
they don't. I mean, Clemson, their focus is just try to make it through the season unbeaten. I mean, they should be able to do that. Just the question is, are they going to be able to play at a level that's going to allow them to do that? Or are they going to have a bad game and somebody against them plays good and sneaks up and beats them? That could always happen. But you know, and people sometimes get hung up on things like, people say, well, Clemson should be number one until somebody beats them. Well, that's not the way it works. And you can't base anything that happened last season on what's happening now. You have to look at the season each team's having and look at how well they played from the beginning of the season to this point. And if you look at all the top, 6, 7, 8 teams in the country, and try to whittle it down to who you think is the 4 best, Clemson right now is not one of the 4 best teams in the country based on the way they're playing.
It comes down to so much more than just a win. So yeah.
I mean, a lot of people would think probably right now overall, a lot of people would probably say that Ohio State may be the best team. Some people would say Oklahoma. Alabama, even though they're ranked number 1, right now they are not the best team. Mm-hmm. They may have possibly the most deadly passing game, with 2 of those receivers. The running game is coming along. The defense has been good for the most part. But it hasn't been consistent, and they obviously they've got some issues on that side of the ball, and like I said, when they play somebody really good, that defense is going to have to show up, and that probably won't happen until LSU. But in due time, we're going to find out about each one of these teams, and find out which ones are one of the 4 best teams in the country. So.
Yeah, just right now, especially after that barely win, I still don't know if I see, Clemson in there. I don't know. We'll have to keep watching football, find out. But December is going to be wacky. I already know for sure. December is going to be a very, very cool month in college football history. The Heisman is going to be crazy too because we have so many guys, I think there's more quarterbacks here than I've seen in my life. That are just worthy of a Heisman Trophy. First off, you have Tua, who has thrown for way more yards than Trevor Lawrence already, 0 picks. You have Jalen Hurts, who is going absolutely off at Oklahoma. Is probably the most worthy of the Heisman right now. Justin Fields, who's one of the speediest quarterbacks I've ever seen in my life. Dude can get out of any pocket. He can throw just as well as Jalen. He can throw pretty contested passes too. We've seen a couple times. And you have Joe Burrow, who's just a Tom Brady type field general quarterback. So we have a lot of these guys that can come out and try to win the Heisman. Not only, but you have dark horses. You have Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin. You also have Travis Etienne that could sneak up and get it from Clemson if they can keep their run game going. So you have tons of people that could challenge this Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's basically a 4-horse race for the Heisman. It's basically Tua and Jalen, Justin Fields, and Joe Burrow. These guys are on 4 of the top 5 or 6 teams in the country. They're all quarterbacks. They're all throwing up unbelievable numbers every week, and they're the ones getting all the attention in the press clippings. You got a couple, 3 guys on the periphery that can jump up and have a great game and all of a sudden be in that same mix. Jonathan Taylor comes to mind. Again, you got Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence can all of a sudden start, play better and put up great numbers, and they could possibly be in there. But right now, it's basically an all quarterback race right now. It's going to be between those 4 guys. It's not saying it can change. You never know. Somebody might have a bad game. Somebody might get hurt. Or some other team comes on and has a great player, puts up great numbers, can always work their way into the conversation. But right now, it's basically between those 4 guys.
Yeah, I mean that's who you're gonna see. When they pick. Last year you had what it was Dwayne Haskins, and then it was Tua, and then it was Kyler Murray, right? I think
Yeah.
that was what it came down to. So I think this year you're probably gonna see Tua, you're probably gonna see Jalen, and I think you're gonna see Justin Fields in there. But I think he could probably beat out Joe Burrow for that last spot. But yeah, I mean, overall, if you just look at all these people that could compete for it, there's so many. There are more offensive superstars this year than I've probably ever seen just in my life watching college football. I mean, I know in the past, obviously, there's been more, but this is such an offensive game now that there's so many. I mean, you could take any
Well,
receiver on Alabama's roster and put them in that conversation eventually.
not only that, it's just right now it's just a quarterback centric game. Everything seems to revolve around the quarterbacks, and then to a lesser degree the receivers as well. But yeah, it's football has become more. It's evolved more into a skills type of game. It's not about so much about controlling the line of scrimmage and running the ball and stopping the run. It's about guys going there, quarterbacks leading their teams, putting up great numbers, and guys on the edges making plays, whether it be receivers, cornerbacks, safeties, maybe a running back. It's become more of a skills or playmaker kind of a game, and it's not the black and blue running the football 3 yard in a cloud of dust stuff. That kind of football has gone by the wayside. There's very few teams that do that. Wisconsin is one team that kind of still does. That they really believe in having a big offensive line and getting there and pounding the ball and running it well. But there aren't a lot of teams out there nowadays that depend on that.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Wisconsin. They do it pretty well with 26 carries and 119 yards this past week against Northwestern for Jonathan Taylor, and a touchdown for him as well. So yeah, they're doing pretty well. But it's just, like you said, it's so quarterback centered, so quarterback centric. It's just it's getting to the point where almost every quarterback that's in a good offense can now have a chance to go out for the Heisman. So yeah, we're looking at something big here, some big time names trying to win that trophy. So for college football this past week, we didn't really go over all the scores, but Ohio State did Ohio State things and beat Nebraska 48-7. Now people are starting to call them like the best team in the country just right off the bat, because I mean that's a pretty good win. Nebraska has a really good defense, and Ohio State was able to exploit that with somebody like Justin Fields. They were able to get the rush going with 24 carries and 177 yards with J.K. Dobbins. Justin Fields 15 out of 21 for 212 yards, 3 touchdowns. So they're doing really good in that aspect. Going down to Oklahoma, beating Texas Tech 55-16. Jalen Hurts doing Jalen Hurts things with 415 yards, 3 touchdowns. Auburn slipping by Mississippi State 56-23. We did say this might be a game where Mississippi State kind of challenge them a little bit, maybe get in there and win. But Mississippi State just got off to a slow start. Couldn't do it.
They got ambushed early, got behind, and it just kind of
fell from there.
Went downhill from there. They were in that game. Auburn, to their credit, came out. They got off to a great start, and they were able to sustain the energy and play well throughout the entire game. So they played well.
He really did. 335 yards for Bo Nix. I mean, that's
Bo Nix had easily his best game since he's been at Auburn. That should serve them well if he can carry that type of performance on to the upcoming game against Florida Saturday, because Auburn is going to need to have a balanced attack. Florida's getting some guys back, especially on defense, that have been injured, so they're going to be much closer to full speed than what they have been in the last few weeks. That's a pretty good Florida defense, and Auburn. Conversely, their defense will be facing a more dangerous offense. They got a quarterback, Kyle Trask, who's a much better passer. So that's something that their defense will have to contend with. So Auburn will have a much more difficult test. They got to play at the Swamp Saturday against Florida.
Very tough place to play in for SEC.
It is. It's a tough environment. People say, "Well, Auburn went on the road and beat Texas A&M," but playing Texas A&M is not the same as playing in the Swamp. It's going to be
one of the most iconic stadiums in the world.
The crowd is more on top of you. They're louder. They make a lot more noise. And over the years, a lot of teams that went to the Swamp and lost. And that. And partly because the environment there can be intimidating for a visiting team. I expect Auburn will go there and play well. I'm not sure how well Florida will play. I think if Florida plays good, I think that could be a close game. I think Florida has a chance to win. I would expect Auburn to win the game, but I think it'll be fairly close. I would think that if Auburn wins, it'll probably be by, I'd say, less than 10 points.
I mean, this is going to be one of the most competitive games we're going to see all season. I mean, Auburn is number 7, Florida's number 9. This is looking, even better than Georgia and Notre Dame. This is going to be really good to see who can compete for that SEC spot. Who's like the I guess A tier of the SEC, because you have LSU and Alabama right now are in Georgia as well are in the S tier. Well, these guys are kind of fighting for who's the A tier SEC team. Is it Florida or Auburn? So it's going to be a really good matchup, especially with Kyle Trask. He went 18 out of 20 for 188 yards last week. So he's the kind of quarterback that if he's not going to complete a deep ball, if he doesn't want to take a deep shot, he'll check it down. He's not afraid to check it down and hand it off on RPOs and reads and things like that. So it's going to be a good matchup. I'm really excited for that matchup, definitely.
Yeah, and if Florida's going to win, Kyle Trask is going to have to play a really good game. Basically, their chance of winning is mostly going to fall on his shoulders. Florida's not going to be anybody running the football. They don't have a great offensive line. You worry about how they're going to perform against Auburn's defensive line, which is one of the best, if not the best, in the country. I would have to guess that Florida is going to employ probably a short, quick passing game to try to hold off Auburn's rush from the D line. So you'll probably see a lot of screens, quick passes to the receivers. Wheel routes to the running backs and that kind of thing. So I would think you'll see a lot of that from Florida. And Auburn's going to do what they do. They're going to throw in some trick plays. They're going to have some in the round runs to the receiver. They may do a wildcat run or two.
Bubble screens left and right.
Bubble screens. Probably they'll try to get some RPO action going, but. It's going to be a good game, and it's going to be a good, interesting battle in the trenches because neither one of these teams has a great offensive line, but both teams have a really good defensive line. So
it's just, man, this is going to be just a competitive game. That's all I can say. I mean, when you look at it, it does look like, from a perspective, Auburn could completely destroy Florida on that defense with that defensive line, because they've always got a powerful defensive line. Now it's even better, and Florida's not known for having the best offensive line in the country right now. So Auburn could definitely get in there and cause some disruption there and cause some sacks. So Kyle Trask, he's going to have to make some good reads, some quick reads, some fast decisions. Everything's going to have to be perfect for him. He's going to have to be perfect on everything he does, and in most games he plays, he's looking like he can be a perfect quarterback. Mm-hmm. He's going to have to be a Joe Burrow. He's going to have to be a field manager. So,
one thing to consider also, Auburn at times is a much different team on the road than what they play at home. Auburn has one of the best, if not the best, home field advantages in all of college football. They always play well there when they have a good team. At times when they go on the road, they don't play to the same level. So I'm not sure if it's going to be the case here or not, but that will be something to look out for. Can they play at the same level on the road they have at home? They played Texas A&M in College Station and played a good game, but not a great game. It was good enough to win. Obviously, they had to come behind in the opening game against Oregon in Dallas to beat them, but again, Auburn doesn't normally play as well on the road as they do at home, so that'll be something to keep an eye on.
Definitely, and that's like, going into week 6. That's the best game, of course. And that may be one of the best games of the year. I mean, that's a really good game. That's going to be the best game in week 6. Week 6, you don't have much. You have now number 18 UCF with their first loss already, playing Cincinnati. You got number 5 LSU playing Utah State, who they're absolutely going to demolish. I mean,
that game may be closer than what people expect. Utah State has a pretty good program. They're able to score a lot of points. Obviously, they're not anywhere in the class of LSU as far as overall depth and talent. But that team, Utah State, has gone on the road and played some good teams over the last few years and have played them pretty tough. People who think LSU is going to just go out and just win that game by 40 or 50 points may be disappointed. That game is going to be closer, I think, what a lot of people expect.
I could see that. The line right now is 28, so LSU under 28. So, I mean, yeah, you can see that kind of slipping down there and kind of getting a little bit of pressure on Joe Burrow. And early in that game, maybe something could slip up and they could be a little bit closer. Joe Burrow has 17 touchdowns right now, 1,520 yards. So Joe Burrow's going to ball out. That's going to be an impressive game to watch for Joe Burrow. LSU fans, you want to see Joe ball out again. Oklahoma, Big 12 matchup playing Kansas. Jalen Hurts going to use that. He's going to use that as a toy for him. I mean, he's just going to play with Kansas all night. That's going to be a. That's probably. I mean, they have it as under 31.5 right now for Oklahoma. So I don't know. I feel like Jalen Hurts and CeeDee Lamb are going to tear that Kansas team up.
Yeah, that should be a big blowout. Oklahoma should score at least 60 points in that game.
I think so. Yeah. You have number 8 Wisconsin playing Kent State. Jonathan Taylor. He's going to run all over him. He's got 559 yards or 84 carries right now. He's got 8 touchdowns.
Jonathan Taylor may have a big game that game. The forecast
55 degrees.
Shows rain there, and of course, generally Wisconsin, a running team primarily anyway, especially when it's raining. So you're probably not going to see a lot of passing. So I would look for John Taylor to get a lot of carries and a lot of yards, probably at least over 200 yards. Kent State's one of the worst teams in FBS, so I would look for a big game from Jonathan Taylor.
That's going to be an interesting Heisman game for Jonathan Taylor, see if he can make that dark horse spot. You got number 12 Penn State playing Purdue, Big Ten matchup. Purdue's 1-3 right now, 0-1 in the Big Ten. So Penn State, I mean, they have Sean Clifford, who's shown he's one of the sleeper quarterbacks right now. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that's probably going to be a pretty big game for Penn State. They're probably going to.
They should win a game easily. Purdue's not very good. Penn State really played well the last game. I'm not sure if they can continue that week in and week out. But they're at home and they should win that game big. There is a game in Ann Arbor though between Iowa and Michigan. The other matchup this weekend between ranked teams. I was off to a good start. A team that doesn't really get a lot of recognition. They're not flashy. They don't have like any real big name players or anything. But they're off to a good start. They're 4-0. Michigan, of course, we know the troubles they've had. They're coming off the big loss at Wisconsin. Was that this past weekend or 2 weeks ago?
Wisconsin, I believe that was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Wisconsin had a big game this week.
So, I mean, Michigan is still trying to sort out their offense. Their defense is, still good. It's not great. Michigan's at home. Michigan's a little bit of a favorite, 3.5 points. But Harbaugh has a record for losing these kind of games. I think against ranked teams, I think his record is something like 1-9 or something like that. It's not good at all. And
it's pretty high up on the hot seat. So.
I think Iowa's going to go and win that game. I think Iowa's an underrated team. I think they're better than what people might think.
And, past that Big 12 matchup, you got Oklahoma State versus Texas Tech. And Texas Tech is the team that Oklahoma kind of just blew out past week. So Oklahoma State's looking to kind of have similar success, but they might not get there. It's under 10 for Oklahoma State right now. Have win by 10 points, so I don't know. That's a matchup where Texas Tech could kind of flip it around and try to get that win. But I would probably have Oklahoma State winning when you have a guy like Spencer Sanders.
I would too. Oklahoma State real good offense. They have an average Big 12 defense, which by general standards is not very good, but in Big 12, it's plenty good enough. Texas Tech, a team that they can score a little bit, but they have absolutely zero defense. And Oklahoma State should win that game easily, I would think.
And you have number 9 Notre Dame playing Bowling Green, so that's going to be easily a huge blowout for Notre Dame. Ian Book's going to show out. And Tony Jones Jr. is going to show out too as a running back, 48 carries, 279 yards, and 4 touchdowns in total. So he's going to show out as well. But I expect Ian Book to have a pretty good game there. So not really much to say about that one. That's kind of just blowout. Number 11 Texas playing West Virginia. So you got a Big 12 matchup there. You think Sam Ehlinger's probably going to just ball out this game?
I don't know. I got mixed feelings on this one. They're playing at West Virginia Morgantown, which can be a tough place for opposing teams to go and play. Again, Texas, they're off to a good start. They're playing reasonably well. Their defense is concerning though. They're right now they're basically having to outscore people to win games. At some point, if their defense doesn't improve, that could come around to bite them in the butt. I would expect Texas to win this game, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a struggle for them.
Yeah, I mean, West Virginia is kind of one of those teams. I mean, obviously in the Big 12, you're not really playing many great teams in there, besides, Texas, and you got, you got like Oklahoma in there, Oklahoma State up in there, and Texas Tech. But yeah, West Virginia is gonna come out and probably give Sam Ehlinger a harder time than what he's kind of been used to. But then again, it is Sam Ehlinger, and this guy's probably gonna try to run it all over you. West Virginia is one of these teams that might be able to stop the run all over and force them to pass a little bit downfield to try to take that away as much as possible. So yeah, that's pretty much that there. Then you have number 3 Georgia playing Tennessee. They have that under 24.5 for Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia, they'll beat that. Georgia winning a game easily. Tennessee has no quarterback. They benched Garrett Garantamo. Right now, supposedly they're repping 3 quarterbacks in practice, deciding who's going to be the quarterback. The other 2 guys they're repping are both true freshmen. Tennessee, they're not very good on offense. They're not very good on defense. They're just not a good football team. Georgia should win that game easily. That shouldn't even be a contest.
Yeah. And Ohio State, number 4, playing Michigan State, number 25, and who a lot of us say Ohio State's probably the best team in the country when you look talent-wise right now, and just not really straight up talent-wise, but just in total, just the best team in the country, although they were ranked number 4. But, this over-under is 20 for OSU, so yeah, this is going to be probably bigger than 20 for me. I mean, I probably have, Ohio State past Michigan State at like 24. Ohio State's just going to ball out. They're a team unmatched by anybody in this country.
I think as that game goes on, I think Ohio State will pull away from them. I think early in that game, for the first quarter and a half, maybe even up to halftime, I think Michigan State will play them tough. I wouldn't be surprised if it was maybe kind of a close game at halftime, and Ohio State just runs away from them in the second half. The thing with Michigan State is their defense is pretty good. It's pretty solid. They just don't have a lot of offense. They're probably going to have a hard time moving the ball. They're a small yardage team. They don't have a lot of playmakers. They're not going to get a lot of big plays. It's mostly going to be running the ball between the tackles, having a short to intermediate passing game, and just kind of move the yardsticks. Kind of offense. They're not going to pull off a bunch of big plays. Probably their best chance of winning is, first of all, to try and force Ohio State into some turnovers, play good defense, and try to control the clock by like I said, just trying to move the chains on offense. That's going to be their best shot, and that might keep them in the game for a half. I think eventually Ohio State's talent and depth, I think, will eventually allow them to pull away in the second half.
Yeah, I think this will be a game kind of like a reverse game. Usually you see Ohio State teams like that have a field day in the first half. I think Ohio State might have a field day in the second half if it's a little bit closer. When they come out at halftime, I feel like Ohio State might have a field day definitely in the first couple drives there. Then you have Tulsa and SMU, which is almost an unranked matchup, so that's not very noteworthy. Over/under is 13 for SMU, so it's probably what it's going to be. They're playing Tulsa. SMU's 5-0, so yeah. Number 13 Oregon versus unranked Cal. So that could be a decent matchup.
Now unranked Cal, they were 15 last week until they lost. Who was it they lost to? I forget.
I actually do not remember who they lost to. It's Cal versus who was it? Was it wasn't UCLA? No, I don't know. Cal, huh? I'm not sure. I literally remembered it until now. I'm not sure why I forgot.
Cal played. Let's see.
Either way, I think Oregon's going to run away.
Yeah, I mean, Cal's team have a pretty good.
Played Arizona State University,
okay.
Right? So,
all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, Cal has a good defense. They don't have a great offense. Oregon should win that game. Washington, Stanford. Stanford's not bad on defense. They're pretty pedestrian on offense. Again, that's the team that primarily depends on running the ball and having a short passing game. If Washington plays well, they should win that. And in Boise State, Boise State, when they get into the teams in their league in the Mountain West, don't usually face too many challenges. They're playing a 1-3 UNLV team, and Boise State will probably win that one big, I would think.
Yeah, Hank Bachmeier is a true American hero, taking a team like Boise State. And all really started with FSU. Now they're 4-0 in the Mountain West, and going up against a pretty not solid team. That should be a handily game. Over/unders 23 for BSU. So yeah, that's pretty much it for all the games, all the ranked games next week. There's some in there that were pretty bad, weren't even worth talking about. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. But there are good ones. Auburn and Florida is going to be one of the best games of the whole season. I'll be definitely reporting on that on Instagram as is going on. No Alabama this week. No Clemson either. Both bye weeks. Who else is on a bye? I guess it's just Alabama and Clemson. Yeah, so that's pretty unfortunate for the people that want to see both those teams lose. But yeah, I'll be on the Instagram story for Auburn and Florida this weekend. So if you guys want to get some updates on that, see what I have to say about that as it's going on, I'll be on there at Your Football Forecast on Instagram. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for today. We kind of covered everything. Still some kind of little bit of scores and stats in the NFL we didn't really go over, but everything really important we kind of touched on. And a good bit of news this week, especially in college football. Just some hype around these games this weekend. So yeah, I guess if you have anything to add.
No, I think that about covers everything. We got some good games next week. Not a lot of them. But we got I think some good matchups among the top 25 teams. Some interesting games. I think the following week we've got some higher profile games, and of course we'll talk about those when it comes that time.
Yeah, definitely. Next Tuesday we'll be talking about those and the results of the games from the past weekend. Also some NFL stuff. We're gonna have a lot more NFL stuff as we get into mid-season. Because NFL always heats up in the mid-season. That's when the most drama comes out. It's when teams start to show their true colors and things like that. So we'll see. We'll see what the news is, and we'll be the first to report it to you guys on the podcast and talk about it. You guys can come join us And yeah, so don't forget to share our podcast around, like the video if you're watching it on YouTube, give us a like, and go ahead and share it. Just take that link, kind of share it with anybody you want, anybody that likes football, because we're gonna talk about it all. And yeah, I mean we're excited to go along and build this community of people that love football, and especially SEC. We're down here in the SEC, so it's pretty fun time to talk about those teams with a local community like that. And yeah, just we like talking about big matchups, big plays, stats, a bunch of different analysis terms and games and matchups and just all kinds of stuff like that. It's gonna be fun. So yeah, like I said, go ahead and make sure you share our videos around, share our channel around, and yeah, we really appreciate that, just building that community some more. So yeah, and also don't forget to tune in and actually be interactive with us, because that's a big thing. We like to talk to people while we're doing our podcast and have people up here and give us questions and things like that. So don't forget to do that, because you can always do that in YouTube chat, or you can comment on Instagram, because I always see what you comment on Instagram, and we can take that in the podcast and we can use that. We'll talk about it for you, shout you out and everything. And yeah,
interaction is always good. Yeah, always hit us up. Anything you have a question about, or anything you want to throw out there that you want to talk about, we're more than glad to do that. We can sit here and talk about the different games and analyze things a little bit. But it's always good to get away from that and break that up and just talk about whatever's on your mind. Anything you have a question about a certain team, player, projecting, how things may play out for a certain team or whatever over the course of the season. We can talk about any of that stuff. So
yeah, couldn't have said it better. Same exact thing. Just interact with us. That's what we want to do. Just like I said, build a community. That's the number one thing. That's the motto now. Build a community of passionate football fans. And yeah, so we'll continue doing that, and we'll continue that next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And I will see you guys there. Peace.